Next on the agenda, we'll have Todd Shields from Indiana DOT give us an update on the pavement preservation certification.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Before we get started here, we've talked a little bit about this during the week. This program started maybe a year ago, year and a half? Yeah. So we had the opportunity, I was able to attend the ISSA conference in January, where all of these certifications were offered. They offer certification in crack seal, microsurface and slurry, and chip seal. So I was interested in the chip seal, which is the one that I took, with the idea, since we do all of our chip seals in-house, getting our core crew members certified. So, give a little background on why we thought this would be important. We construct, again, about 1,500 lane miles of chip seal each year, predominantly done with our in-house crews. We have occasionally done a contract. We've never, ever had success with a contract chip seal. So we have 6 districts. Each district has their own crew. There's a core crew. Typically, the district operators run the distributors and the chip box, and then there's typically a coordinator that travels around, and he's kind of the horse wrangler, getting the materials and all the equipment and all the people in the right place. So training, we've done various training over the years. We've had NCPP. Tom Wood came out to Indiana about 10 years ago and gave his day-long chip seal training. Various NHI courses that do cover chip seals. And we've developed our own in-house training as well that we've done over the years. Call them kickoffs. We try to do them early in the spring before the chip seal season starts. We still have lots of opportunities for improvement. These are actual roads that we have had problems with. This is a very bad example, but these are what we get. These are the bad examples. We don't want this. So, great example here is the Indiana Women's Prison, and this project is actually still going on. This was last year. Somehow we got a contract chip seal through. We're not sure why. It was about a mile worth of road. We could have gone out and done it in an hour. For some reason, we got a contract out there. Well, the contractor had no idea what a chip seal was, never done one before. Our inspectors out there had no idea what a chip seal was, didn't bother to read specs. Didn't bother to ask anybody. So contractor shows up. He had, I believe, he had 1 operator. No, he had 2. He had 2. So the distributor sprayed the emulsion. They had to go get a load of stone. So he had to jump on the truck, go get a load of stone. In the meantime, it rained. So he comes back with his load of stone, applied the stone to the chip seal, and they tried rolling it and couldn't figure out. They had problems. This is what they had. So they redid it, did an equally poor job, and now this summer we're looking at it again. What do we do? I think we're going to make him mill it up and pave it this time. So again, the bottom line in here, the contractor had no idea what he was doing. Our inspector had no idea what he was looking at, so we got a bad job. So our path to TSP2 certification. So 2017, this year, we kind of looked at it as a pilot for us. If you're familiar at all with how the certification process works, there's an ISSA online training for each one of these treatments, crack seal, microsurface, and chip seal. You go through that ISSA online certification, so it's kind of at your own pace, and there's lots of knowledge checks along the way. There's an exam at the end that you have to pass, and you get a little certificate. So technically, that's a prerequisite to taking the actual certification test, which is based on that training. So we decided, we got 6 districts in the spring. To do this, we would do our chip seal kickoffs normal. So we used that ISSA training kind of as our backdrop. That was our training. So we brought 2 districts in to a location. We went through the ISSA training. We brought in our operators, we brought in our managers, brought in our foremen. So everybody got the ISSA training, and then we baked in some of our own stuff. And then we identified people who would go on to be certified. I think we limited to about 30, 35 is about the limit that we want to have in a class taking the test. So we limited it to that. So about 5 per district. We had 36 total go on to be certified. So using the ISSA web-based training as our template, we went along. There we go. So if you guys are familiar with Turning Point, it's the clickers you can go along, the response, you can have the audience vote on things. So as the ISSA training was going along and it would have its knowledge checks, we'd have on another screen, we'd have the same thing. So everybody'd get a select their answer. And then based on the responses we got, would kind of guide us, so, okay, we need to talk a little bit more about this, or hey, you guys got this, we'll move on. So this was just a good method for us to follow along and make sure the guys were getting it. So for the folks that were going on to the certification test, so the prereq was the kickoff, we impressed upon them the challenges. I think in January at the ISSA training, I want to say 40% passed the chip seal test. It was somewhere in that range. So it was not a real high pass rate. So we were impressing upon these guys, you're not going to go home, go to sleep, forget about this, come back and take a test. You need to learn. You need to study your manuals. So we gave them the manuals. Had a little bit of a hiccup with the manuals, but we got that figured out. And then we had the actual certification test in April, I think, early April, right before we started chip sealing. So we had 36 take the exam. Again, mainly operators and managers. We had a few central office engineers that we couldn't keep away. We decided to certify our folks as contractors. So on the certification test, you certify as an agency, which is more of an inspector type, or you certify as a contractor, which is actually more hands-on, nuts and bolts operating the equipment. So since we actually do the operating of the equipment, we decided it'd be better to do the contractor exam. So it's a little bit more rigorous exam. I think the agency test was 50 questions. The contractor exam is 80, so it goes a little more in depth. And then we did provide, Larry actually provided us about 3-hour refresher training. So before we took the test, before lunch, we had a 3-hour kind of refresher training to go back over what was covered in the ISSA test, go over what was covered in the manual. And then we actually took the exam in the afternoon. And it is closed book, right? Yeah, so we make them close their books and put those away. So out of that, 33 of them actually passed. So that was impressive. Clint and I kind of had a board drawn up, betting, okay, where are we going to land in this? Because we're remembering the 40% of the contractors who didn't pass it, or who did pass it. But we ended up with 33 of them passing. We ended up, I think we had 1 no-show, and we had 3 actually failed the test. And I want to say 1 or 2 of them that failed were sort of borderline. 1 of them wasn't close. So our plan right now is to, when chip seal season's over, October, November, end of the season, we'll get those 3 back together, maybe give them a couple hours of refresher training, go over some stuff, and then have them retake the test, and hopefully that'll do it for them. So that was our path, again, toward the chip seal certification. We're looking to do this possibly again next year. The certifications never expire, but the more people on our crews that we have who have this background knowledge, I think the better off we're going to be. We possibly might look to do crack seal. We had a lot of crack seal problems this spring, so we might look to do crack seal next year as well. But yeah, it's a great opportunity. The question that Larry asked me, could we tell a difference? And I think the difference that we saw immediately was the people on the crews, when things started to go wrong, the mindset previously was, I got to get production, I got to get production. So when things start to go wrong, what do? You go faster because it gets over quicker. So I think what we've seen this year is when things start to go wrong, people start to step back and say, let's stop and figure out what's going on here and fix it. We had a job, actually in Clint's new district, first job they did that did not go really well. And so there was a lot of panicking, a lot of hair on fire, and there were people saying, we just need to turn around and re-chip seal it. Well, to re-chip seal a bad chip seal sometimes creates an even bigger mess. So cooler heads prevailed. They talked it through and decided that wasn't the thing to do. We'll monitor it, and it turned out to be fine. And we saw things in other districts as well, similar things, where I actually got an anonymous phone call. Monday morning, I get in my office and had a voicemail. I don't know how this guy did it. It didn't even show up in my caller log, but an anonymous tip from one of our guys that we need to go look at a job because something didn't look right. So we went down and looked at it, and it wasn't our best job, but it certainly wasn't bad. So I think that's the biggest things we've seen immediately.
What kind of questions were on this exam? What was the variety of questions that were asked?
They're all multiple choice, some true and false. If you go through the ISSA training, and there's a manual, there's a pretty good manual that comes along with it. So they're pretty much right out of that. Well, here I can show you an exact example. This is right off of the ISSA training. So it's similar questions you get in the test.
Yeah, there's six sections. Your forces are, you're going through is it training as a prerequisite?
Correct. So what we're doing, we're bringing them in a room like this. We're trying to limit the class size. We're limited, to 2 districts at a time. So we would actually have the ISSA training going, and so it's narrated. There's some animations, and then when it would get to the knowledge checks, if you've ever taken one, we'd have on another screen, we'd have that, and so those guys get to select their answer. We'd get this all over the board, so we know, okay, hey, we need to hit this a little harder because people are not getting this. So we spent some more time talking about it, go through it, move on.
Did you get a lot of resistance from your in-house staff to go through this, or?
No, they just looked at it as another, we do kickoff chip seal training pretty routinely, so they just kind of looked at it as the same thing. The resistance that we got, and we kind of tried to keep this sort of quiet, so we'd have a room full of people in the kickoff. You know, we'd have about 40, we limited it to about 40 people. Pretty much everybody wanted to move on to certification, and we just couldn't do that because we were piloting it this year. We didn't want to certify everybody. We didn't want to certify our entire staff and have everybody fail. We thought that would look really bad. So we were kind of taking baby steps. So yeah, that was the resistance, was more people wanted to be certified than we really had slots for.
And afterwards, surprisingly, probably I had about 5 of them approach me afterwards wanting some of their peers to get certified, which kind of surprised me because a lot of them, you go through a test or a certification, people, it's over, it's done with. And it was like, are you guys going to do this again next year? Because they saw a big benefit to it. There was a lot of stuff that they had seen in practice, but they never knew what caused it, how to fix it. And I think the training did a good job of that. And when we brought everybody in, there was a lot of discussion going on. It wasn't us talking. It was, you know, we definitely did some talking, but it was a lot of questions being asked during it, and really informal, which we liked. And you know, we're dealing with mainly operators. That's more or less, I would say, 80% of who we certified, 90% of who we certified. So they were really happy with it. Like Todd said, he got an anonymous phone call. I think I got 2 the next week asking about stuff. So it was good.
So we try to be careful too, selective with our audience. You know, we're joking with Clint, but he's got a couple operators that could retire any day. We didn't see any need to certify those guys. You know, let's certify the next generation, the guys that are the up and comers. So yes, that's a good point. And that's, you know, there's definitely some value in doing that compared to going one district at a time, because we definitely did see that. We talked about with the silicosis, the dust, you know, we got talking about, you know, how do you control dust? Well, if you're just in one district, they know what they do, but we did get that cross-pollinating. Well, we go out with the spray truck and water it down. And another district says, well, we tried that, and that turns into a slurry. It's a mess. So, you know, yes, we did get a lot of that. Here's the problems we're having, and then the other district would say, well, geez, here's what you got to do. Yes, that helped a lot.
Todd, emulsion chip seals, that's what you're doing?
It's emulsion, yeah. Yep. The training is, I mean, we have 4 districts using the anionics, 2 have switched to cationic, so the training's the same. I think there might be a few questions in there about mixing and matching, don't mix them.
Yeah, Todd, just a comment. The test covers project selection, materials, design, construction, equipment, and quality assurance. Those 6 sections, and that's pretty much any one of the certifications. It will cover those areas. And it's kind of interesting because you took the contractor exam, and yet, and it's no surprise to anybody, we have good contractors and bad contractors, and some of those contractors could not pass that exam, and that's their bread and butter. And we didn't. It goes to show that we were asking for the superintendents, the foremen, and the equipment operators to take the exam. We weren't asking for the laborers to take it. And so it was quite a shock that this is their livelihood, and yet they didn't know some of the basics. And I think that kind of reflects out on the job sites too. I mean, you get some good jobs, you get some bad jobs. It just depends what contractor you bring in, and they're not all the same.
I don't know that you want to promote this, but did you see competition among districts that were better, you know, we're trying to get better than they are, or something like that?
I don't think in our group, I don't think we really saw that. Now, we did see of the 6 districts, of the 3 that failed, 2 came out of one, and 1 came out of an adjacent. So we definitely, and our no-show, our no-show and 2 failures were out of one district. So I think that.
One of those failures was a half show because he missed the first half of the training.
Yeah, he didn't realize he was supposed to be there, but anyway, different story. So yeah, you could kind of see that. Yes, we did have districts that wanted to send more to be certified. Again, we had a ceiling, we had a limit, so we had to live within that.
I think there was definitely competition with how everybody scored on the exam. You know, everybody kind of wanted to see, you know, well, what did you get? And we didn't think we were going to get the results, but I guess, you know, on the letters they actually said what you got. So there was that competition afterwards.
We didn't post that. I mean, people talk, but yeah, we didn't post any of that. We did give kind of as a thank you, because these guys, you know, it was above and beyond. We gave them a small spot bonus, the guys that passed, kind of as some incentive, and hopefully word gets out, we do this again.
Was there any resistance to this initially?
The resistance would have been, I guess, from my director and maybe our deputy, in that we go through this and we all fail, what then? We're not gonna shut down our chip seal crew, so what do we do? That would have been the resistance. It really wasn't from the guys doing it.
Todd, do you see this as becoming a requirement for employees to do certain jobs in the?
Potentially, potentially. We have lots of training opportunities and lots of certifications, but as far from a requirement to actually be on the chip seal job, that's hard to do unless we redo job descriptions or reclassify. That's kind of hard to do right now. An example is herbicide applicators. We do have to have a license to spray herbicide. There's no reclassification involved, so there's not a lot of incentive for people to do it. So if we make this a requirement, it might be hard to incentivize people to do it.
What is the shelf life on the certificate, and how do you anticipate getting people recertified?
So there is no,
Yeah, 3 years.
oh, there is 3 years, okay. And then we take the exam again, or is it just a self-recertification?
Another example.
Another exam, okay. So that detail wasn't worked out when we started this.
Comment when you meant if everybody failed, what we wouldn't shut down the crew.
Right?
Well, my opinion would be, even if they all failed, they were better operators than they were before they had training.
Because they've got something, yeah.
That's right. And I mean, everybody, I'm all for certifications, but I'm more for training. And even if a person is not a good test taker, if they sit in there and they pick up 3 or 4 little tidbits that they didn't know, they're a better operator than they were before.
Yep.
So even those 3 that failed are probably better at their job than they were before they had training. But they weren't, and the training was wasted.
Yep.
And afterwards, I mean, everybody came into Indianapolis, so I mean, we had some people driving 4 hours to get there. Everybody afterwards, when they were coming out of the exam, was congregating and talking, what was the answer to this question? So, I mean, there was a lot of, and usually one person knew the answer. I mean, there were a couple that kind of stumped me because I didn't remember reading them, don't remember hearing them. You know, you make your best guess, but, so there was that afterwards. I think that a lot of people, so if they didn't get, well, you know, score it right on the exam afterwards, they knew what the answer was when they walked out. So.
In my opinion, right there is the value
Yeah.
of doing this, because you've got them, like you said, instead of just ramming through a problem, you got them stopping and saying, hey, what should we do?
Yeah.
And that right there is going to increase your efficiency and your performance by 25%, and that's huge.
Yep.
So I compliment you folks for doing this.
All right.
Just a comment. We spend so much time trying to get the best materials out there. We spend all this time trying to do the best design, but yet it can all go down the tubes if we don't have the right workmanship. And so the workmanship is so critical. It's that 3-legged stool, and if we haven't got the workmanship there, everything else doesn't mean a thing.
Ned,
You said, how many contractors did you have take the exam?
we didn't have any contractors. It was all our in-house folks, yeah.
Sorry, 40% then?
At the ISSA workshop in January, that was the national ISSA where, and how many people, do you even know how many people took the chip seal exam?
Probably about 100.
Yeah, and I think you told me about 40% passed.
It was 50 to 60%.
Yeah. Passed or failed?
Yeah,
Passed,
yeah.
okay. So you can get an idea that,
Is that something you think, you know, it's hard to make that mandatory, but you know, if you have contractors that you've had some, you set a bad example.
Yeah.
That's something that, you can't make it mandatory, but that you're thinking of proposing
We
a
have some
contract.
agencies that Nevada DOT has made it mandatory. And the city, county of Honolulu has made it mandatory. So there are places around that are making it mandatory. Yeah. But it's in the spec. It's not anything to do with pre-qualification. And then what they do is they call all the contractors in and want to bid, and they let them know, so they give them a heads up that it's coming and tell them to get certified.
It'd be a hard push, but I was just kind of wondering if that was something that could be helpful.
So, Larry, when you certify, when you ask for certification, is it everybody on the crew is certified,
No.
or just?
Well, for contract certification, we're saying the superintendent for the company, the foreman for the company, and the equipment operator. And maybe 2 equipment operators. But within the company, we ask the company to do in-house training as well, in addition for the company certification. In-house training, and they have to have viable QC/QA, in other words, quality assurance plan, that is reviewed. And Quality assurance plan should tell them when something goes wrong, what exactly do you do to fix it? Their quality control plan should say that. And so they have to come up with a detailed quality control plan. That is before, as long as their people are certified that work for the company, and then they meet the requirements of in-house training and quality control, then they can be a certified company.
You know, for me to point out, one of the things that Indiana did that was so good in their program was they brought all their people together to do the ISSA training. We've looked at the amount of time people spend doing that training if they're just sitting by themselves, and it is minuscule. I mean, they tell you, I've been through the training, but what they've done is clicked through 200 slides, not really looked at getting the material. So this Indiana model is really a model for success because you're actually having people there focused on nothing else but the training, and so they're getting it rather than just clicking through it. And so that makes a huge difference.
And that's a good point, because,
Too.
yeah, because we talked that through, because we knew if we just emailed out a link and said, hey, here, take this before you show up, we didn't figure that was gonna work
Or
real
even
well.
did a webinar, we discussed doing a webinar.
We talked about, yeah, just doing a webinar and,
Computer and.
Having people there face to face and really engaged, where the phone's not ringing, well, maybe the phone is ringing,
Yeah.
but, you know, you reduce those interruptions. It makes a huge difference, and I think it's very positive. It's telling the employees that the work they're doing is important.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.